Tell me something. How many of you would come and sit down and apologize to us for the transatlantic slave trade? You come now. Bring your wife and your children and tell us you're sorry for killing us, raping us, castrating us, and enslaving us, and making us chattel.
There are others who say that there's been slavery before, but ours was the only one to declare us as chattel and as property.
Will you come and apologize? Our people can be like you. It ain't enough. See? If we tell you when you apologize it's not enough, oh, you trying to pimp us and hustle. No, reparation ain't pimping. Reparation is what we deserve for the pain and anguish that you have caused us to suffer. No. But you won't do that. You won't do justice by us. That's why judgment is on you now. That's why you can't live a day without another calamity, and they're not going to stop. It's going to get harder and harder because the God of justice has claimed us, Kyrie and Ye and Durant and Barkley and Shaq. We belong to God, not you. Don't try to use us against each other. If they want to talk to any of you, we'll go with you. You bring your rabbis. You bring your scholars. And I told them when we look at our book that we wrote, we only quoted your scholars, your historians, your rabbis. So when they asked me to condemn our book, I said, oh, if it's all lies, I certainly will condemn it. But we only quoted your people. So when you come out and call everyone that we quoted a liar and an anti-Semite, all right, then I'll condemn the book. But you're not going to do that.
Greetings everyone and welcome back to the channel. For centuries, there has been an ocean between Africa and the Caribbean. What if that ocean never really separated the people? What if underneath the history, the music, the language, the culture, and even the pain, there was always a connection waiting to be discovered? And now, something interesting is happening. Leaders from Africa and the Caribbean are talking more openly about reparation, identity, citizenship, and something that sounds almost unbelievable. The right to return. But here is the big question. Is Africa finally reaching back to the Caribbean? Or is the Caribbean finally finding its way back to Africa? So guys, I want you to watch this video until the end, then I'll come back with more comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel please, and share the video to their loved ones. Thank you.
Is that when the slave owners receive their £20 million in 1834, which was valued at 40% of the government expenditure for that year, that money was invested in the British economy, in the railway industry, in industrial development, and the slave compensation money reinvested in the British economy placed the British economy in a booming condition, and Britain had 50 years of economic growth as a result of that money. 50 years of growth stimulated by the compensation money, the reparation money which the slave owners got, and plowed back into the British economy. So, Here in the Caribbean, the islands were descending into poverty after emancipation. And in Britain, 50 years of growth because the compensation money was reinvested back into the British economy and stimulated the economic development of the country. And what did the slave owners do? They raped the treasury. They said 40% of the British national expenditure for that year was paid over to the slave owners. 20 million pounds. In other words, I want you to imagine 40% of a country's expenditure taken and handed over to the same parliamentarians who were the owners of the slaves. Take it from the treasury and give it to themselves. They then take it from the treasury and then reinvested it in their own industries to stimulate industrial development.
Every man must have 2 wives because 1 wife is not good enough. The first wife is land, and the second wife is the one who makes children for you. And if you cannot make the land pregnant, it's illegal for you to make a woman pregnant. Because when you make a woman pregnant and you don't have land, what are they going to eat? What are they going to drink? Therefore, we must teach our young men to love the land more and fight for the land more than fighting for women. Because the real inheritance that we have is the source of production. What is the role of man? The role of man is to pick up sticks and stand around the land to protect it. It is the role of women to make sure that our children inherit what she is carrying. So the role of man is to be a partner to the woman and protect the estate from other predators that can destroy the inheritance for the children. Because women may not be too strong to look after this estate. It is a duty of a man to walk around with a knob carry and a stick to make sure any thug or animal or human being who wants to tamper with the African continent and land should be kept away from our land as far as possible. Because when we lose this piece of land, we no longer have a reason to reproduce children into the zone of poverty. We've already passed that bus stop because in the midst of colonization and disenfranchising of the African men, the conversion of kings into employees, the creation of the colonial system into labor, into workers, destroyed the very core which kept the families together. And hence, even if you look at all the wars in Africa, we're not fighting for democracy, madam. We're fighting for land. That's all. Full stop. We didn't go to war to come back with a book called democracy. We went to war because we wanted land. And it's amazing that even after independence, we still don't have land in our hands. So it went wrong when people lost, number 1, their identity. 2, the estate and the community that gave them identity.
I watched a woman from Nigeria who had been rescued from the Mediterranean around Lampedusa saying, I will not go back to Africa. Even if I die in the Mediterranean, I'll try again and again. What is it that can make a human being say that I do not want to go back to my home? Because the natural instinct of a human being should be that you want to go home.
Even if America decides that I should no longer enter America, it's okay, I will enter Zimbabwe, I'll enter Botswana, I'll enter Nigeria, I'll enter Africa, my home. Why should I be concerned about people who are going to feed me beggars and make me fat when I can go to Nigeria and eat jollof? Nice, nom. Nice food. So you want to threaten me that you won't give me a visa to America or give me a visa to London? I don't care. I'll go to Africa and enjoy the company of my own people. One day this will come to an end. Even if it's not achieved under me, I must lay a foundation for those who come after me, that we must not hero worship America, so to an extent that when we are threatened that we can't get visas, we retreat on our ideological position.
Yeah, I'm a bit late to all of this, man, but I've been seeing a lot of discourse on this whole Africans, Jamaicans and whatnot. And you know what? I don't like it. Honestly, I don't like it, because I personally feel that we've moved, so far from them dark days. However, what I can say is we can't dismiss what someone's been through. Whether African or Jamaican, we can't dismiss what someone's been through, because some people are still traumatized. That's just the truth. Some people are still living with that trauma of being called an African this or African that. Some people are still living through that trauma. Like, let me tell you a quick story. I remember this time, we was all on the bus. It was back then, early 2000s. There was this girl, she liked this boy. And then the boys come over and asked her, where you from? And the girl said, I'm from Ghana. And the boy went to her face and said, with so much disgust. And this girl used to be a loud, bossy girl, whatever. That's the first time I seen this girl get humbled. It was so dark. I think that girl got off the bus and we all went our ways, whatever. Now, could you blame that girl for coming out, let's say the next day, and saying, I'm not Ghanaian, I'm Jamaican? Do you get what I'm saying? Could you blame that girl? It was just so dark. Back then was very dark. I've been through it myself. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm getting cussed by people who look exactly like me. It's just that you're from this island and I'm from this continent. Do you get what I'm saying? But again, it's discourse that I don't even like, because I personally feel that relations have gotten better, from our parents and grandparents or whatever. Relations have definitely got better. You've got African kids and Jamaican kids having the time of their life, fun, enjoying each other's musics, foods, whatnot. You see it all over social media, you see it in real life, you see it with your kids. Do you get what I'm saying? But I'm gonna have a live on this. Do you get what I'm saying? I just want everyone to come in and talk, and you get me, maybe later on. But let me know what you think in the comments.
There are others who say that there's been slavery before, but ours was the only one to declare us as chattel and as property. I stand here today on behalf of the government and people of Barbados, conscious that our duty is to repair, and our duty is to call for others to repair. Regrettably, our parliament was the first parliament, as you heard from Sir Hilary earlier, to establish the 1661 Slave Code, 2 decades before the Code Noir, which has just been repealed in France. That slave code came to be mimicked, copied exactly in some of the colonies of the United States of America and the Caribbean, and in others used as a platform for their own slave laws. It is the categorization of us as subhuman. It is the categorization of us as chattel, as property, that stripped us of our dignity first.
The colonial project was thorough and very effective in terms of brainwashing the African. And it was so thorough that even in the absence of the white man, I'm using that word very selectively but intentionally, even in the absence of the white man, the black man now supervises each other to conform to the white behavior, culture, fashion, and etc. When I was there for 33 years as a bishop in a church, I remember being told you cannot preach when you don't have a tie on. And these are fellow black people who were telling me to put on a tie, because the white man who started the church said Jesus cannot accept you in your traditional clothes. He can only accept you when you have a tie and a jacket on, polished shoes, and matching socks. Then God is happy. And don't dare you play the drums. The angels and the Holy Spirit will run through the window. So please, play the piano and play the organ, and the Holy Ghost power will come upon you. Someone say amen out there. Don't pretend like you don't know what I'm talking about. You were there also.
You see, without Jamaica, there is no Africa. Yeah. It take a conscious people to understand what I say. I mean, no, so enough for now go agree with it. But make you know like and share. Without Jamaica, there is no Africa. Because you see, we in Africa, we never know for we true self. We never know who we are. We never know what we have. We never value ourselves. We don't have no identity. We don't have no respect. We don't have no recognition. until Jamaica tell we that through reggae music. A Jamaica highlight we in Africa. A Jamaica put black people on the global map. Every first black president in Africa get inspired by Jamaican, Marcus Garvey. And through reggae music, Africa get freedom. So without Jamaica, there's no Africa. I mean, our blood clot business will only want bomb clot.
Hello guys, I hope you have just watched that full video. So guys, to understand this, we have to go back to one of the darkest chapter in history, the transatlantic slave trade. Millions of Africans were taken from their homeland and transported across the Atlantic. Families were broken, names were changed, languages were lost, and generations grew up knowing where they were born, but not necessarily knowing exactly where their ancestors came from. And Jamaicans became one of the places where that painful history left a permanent mark. But there is another part of the story that makes people stop and ask questions. When slavery was abolished in the British Empire, compensation was paid to slave owners. Think about that for a moment. The people who had been enslaved received no equivalent compensation for the suffering they endured, while former slaves owners were compensated for the loss of what the system had treated as property. So, the question becomes, who actually paid the price for freedom? And that question is still being debated today. Because reparations are not simply about someone writing a check and saying, okay, history is finished. For many advocates, reparations are about rebuilding what was damaged. Education, healthcare, economy, opportunity, culture, restoration, and perhaps mostly importantly, identity. Because what happens when generations of people are disconnected from the land of their ancestors? You may know the country where you were born. You may know your family name. You may know your culture, but somewhere inside, there can still be a question. Where did we really came from? And this is where the conversation takes us. Takes a fascinating turn. Ghana has increasingly positioned itself as a bridge between Africa and the global Africa diaspora. Leaders have discussed pathways that could allow members of the global African family to live in Ghana or obtain citizenship. Now imagine what that could mean. A Jamaican person could travel to Africa not simply as a tourist, but with the feeling that they are visiting a part of their ancestral home. That changes the question completely. It is no longer just where did my ancestors came from? It becomes, what can we build together? What can we build together now? That is the question. And this is where the vision associated with leaders like Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley becomes important, because reparatory justice in this broader vision is not simply about money. It is about creating opportunities. It is about education. It is about health. It is about cultural exchange. It is about businesses from Africa working with businesses in the Caribbean. Imagine students crossing the Atlantic to study. Imagine family discovering one another. Imagine young people learning that the Atlantic Ocean does not have to remain a permanent symbol of a separation. And perhaps that is the most powerful part of this entire conversation, because history cannot be changed. You cannot go back and undo the ships. You cannot return every stolen name. You cannot rebuild every broken family, but you can decide what happens next. And that brings us to a much bigger question. What if the future of Africans and the Caribbean is not about looking backwards, but building forward together? Imagine Jamaica entrepreneurs working with African businesses. Imagine Caribbean students studying in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, or other African countries. Imagine Africans artists collaborating with Jamaican musicians. Imagine families discovering connections they never knew existed. Imagine young Jamaicans growing up knowing that Africa is not simply a continent they read about it in history books. It is a part of a much bigger story, but because perhaps the real power of reparation is not only what can be returned, it is what can be rebuilt. The past created separation, but the future could create partnership. The past created silence, but today people are asking questions. And perhaps the biggest questions of all is this. After centuries of separation, what happens when Africans and the Caribbean finally start talking to each other as family? Maybe the answer is not simply a reparation. Maybe it is a reconnection. Yes, of course. Maybe it is opportunity. Maybe it is identity. And maybe after all these centuries, the Atlantic Ocean is no longer just separation Africa and Jamaica. Maybe it is becoming the bridge between them. Because sometimes history doesn't end when the past is remembered. Sometimes history begins again when people decide to build a different future. And this time, perhaps the question isn't what was taken. The question is, what can we build together? What can we build together? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Should Africa and the Caribbean be building a much stronger relationship in the future? So guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, please, and obviously don't forget to comment and don't forget to share to your friends this video so that they can even learn something into this video. Thank you.